Welcome to The Rebel Rebel. I'm your host, Michael Dargy, and in this episode, you'll meet Liz Drury, a voiceover artist who turned passion into a global career. From theater roots to freelancing success, Liz shares insights on creativity, adaptability, and conquering challenges. This episode is brought to you by my book, Brand Jitsu. Move your brand from meh to memorable. Brand Jitsu is the battle-tested method I've been using for nearly 20 years to help artists, entrepreneurs, and businesses find, shape, and share their stories so everyone gets it. And where do you get a copy of this amazing book? Glad you asked. Head over to brandjitsu.com to order a signed copy, or get it at Indigo, Chapters, Kohl's, Barnes & Noble, or head down to your local independent bookstore and ask them to bring it in. Welcome to The Rebel Rebel. I'm your host, Michael Dargy, and across the pond, as they say, is Liz Drury. Liz, how the heck are you?
I'm really good, and thanks for having me on the show.
My pleasure. I've been looking forward to this conversation for a while. So just so that we understand what pond that we're across from, where are you located in the world?
So I am in the UK, specifically in North Lincolnshire, if anybody knows anything about UK geography, about halfway between Scunthorpe and Grimsby, in a little village called Ulsby.
Wow. And it looks like you're in a professional recording studio. That's amazing.
I am. Yeah, this is my little recording space where I work as a voiceover artist. I like to refer to it as my padded cell where I talk to myself.
Amazing. Okay, well, so let's go there. This is it's Liz Drury Voiceovers. And we'll put links below so people can see what you're up to.
Yeah.
But talk to me about that. How, what does a day look like for you?
Do you know, every day is different, and that's probably what I like the most about this job that I have. I never know what's coming every week. So I work across a number of different voiceover genres. So one day I might be recording a narration for a video that a company's going to use on its website, or maybe its social media to explain or promote its products and services. The next day I might be recording voicemail greetings and on-hold messages. I'm the voice of lots of different companies. I might be recording a radio advert, or announcements for events, or audio tours for museums, or teaching people things through e-learning, for online training courses. So yeah, every day is different.
Oh, wow. I don't know whether this is going to be a sore spot, but it just jumped into my head that does this AI voice stuff worry you at all?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. For about the last 5 years, every time I've been to a voiceover conference or meet up a voiceover artist, AI has been on the agenda. Yeah. And for the last few years, it's always been, it's coming. We don't know quite what it's going to do, but it's probably going to have an effect on our industry. And finally, last year, boom, it was here, and everybody is now talking about and using AI. And yet it is concerning. I think that you can still tell the difference between a real human and an AI voice, especially if it's a long narration. If it's something really short, it's hard to tell the difference. But if you're listening to something for some length of time, maybe an audiobook, maybe an e-learning course, there's something not quite right about it. And I think it's partly because it's too perfect. It's like with the AI avatars, they look amazing, but they're not real people because nobody looks as good as that. Right. And when we talk, there's all sorts of variation in our voices, and we never say the same thing exactly the same way twice over. Yeah. And yet an AI would, because that's how it's been programmed. I mean, I'm sure it's only going to get better. But I'm hoping that the people who really care about their products and services are going to want to hire real humans to tell other real humans about them, because that's the way we connect with each other. And I think something is lost in the AI world.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny because there's a couple of episodes last season where I've got a little snippet at the beginning where I talk a bit about the guest that's coming on. Mm-hmm. It's very short, 15 seconds. And I was I was experimenting because I'm I've got this great setup here. And I do lots of voice stuff as well, but I was just I got to set this up. I got to do the thing. What if I cloned my voice on 11 Labs and typed my notes and then just had AI record it as me? Yeah. And it's funny that you say you can tell, and it just wasn't good. So I stopped doing it. It was fine. It was fine. You couldn't, I challenge you to discover which ones have the real me and which ones have the cloned version. But yeah, no, you're right. Like people are important.
Yeah.
So I guess, how did you find yourself here? It is not a very common job.
It's not the kind of thing where you wake up one morning and think, oh, do you know, I want to be a voiceover artist. And it's certainly not the kind of thing that anybody ever mentioned to me in school days, when you're having conversations with teachers about what career you might go into. Nobody suggested voiceover to me. I'm sure they still don't actually in schools today. So yeah, I kind of fell into it. And I think that happens to a lot of people. And I think I can trace it back to when I was at university. I was studying for my PhD, which is in archaeological science. And I'm going off on a little tangent here, but bear with me. We'll come back to voiceover. So I was looking at things like tars and resins that were used as glues and waterproofing agents during the Middle Stone Age, the Mesolithic period. And amongst these finds of glues were these lumps of tar with human tooth impressions in. And people had kind of half-jokingly referred to these lumps of tar as prehistoric chewing gum. And they were made from the same material as the glues that were used to stick arrowheads onto shafts and so on, because I was doing chemical analysis of these things. And so maybe they were used, maybe they were a store of the tar, and when you needed to soften it up to stick your arrowhead to your shaft, you needed to chew it, or all sorts of reasons. So I wrote an article about prehistoric chewing gum for a popular archaeology magazine called British Archaeology. And it must have been a slow news week because the press got hold of this story. And for about 2 weeks, I was in continual demand. It was ridiculous. So my work was reported on the front page of numerous national newspapers in the UK. I was a guest on national radio stations and local radio stations. I was the first person from my university to be reported in the Chinese press. That's how far this thing went. It was crazy.
Wow.
And so the university PR department had a little recording studio, and that was where I used to go to do my radio interviews, because they had a link, an ISDN line at the time, that we could dial into the radio station, so I didn't have to physically go there, but it sounded like I was in the studio with them. And I remember sitting in front of this microphone waiting for one of these interviews to start, thinking, I'm really enjoying this. This is really fun. So that's, I think, where the seed was sown.
Oh, wow.
And after I finished my PhD, my husband, who's in the chemical industry, got a job in North Lincolnshire, which is where we still are. And we moved to this area. And what I was interested in at the time was working in a museum as a museum educator. And I contacted the museums that are in our area. There were no jobs in that field. So, I needed to think again. And my husband's HR manager knew that we were new to the area and said to him, tell your wife to come in and have a chat with me, because he says, I know lots of people in the area. Maybe I can help her find something to do. So I went in, I had a chat to this guy, and he's like, okay, so what are you interested in? And I said, well, I was interested in museum education, but I've explored that, and I know that's a dead end. What else are you interested in? He said. I said, well, maybe something to do with media or PR. And I told him this story of the prehistoric chewing gum and the radio interviews. Right, he says, I can introduce you to the guy who's the managing director of the local cable TV station. Maybe he'll have something for you. So he did that. I went along to the TV station. It was amazing. They ran it on a shoestring, so they didn't really have any money to pay anybody to do anything, but they were like, we're always looking for volunteers. So I started off as a volunteer. Then the job of receptionist became available, and they said, do you want it? And I thought, wow, I feel a little overqualified with a PhD to be a receptionist, but I'm doing this work now and I'm not getting paid. So yeah, why not? Yeah. So I took this job. And one thing kind of led to another, and I ended up working there as a presenter, and I did some voiceover work as part of my job. But I'd never had any training in voiceover at that point, or indeed TV presenting. I just found it was something that I was, sort of naturally able to do. And I left there to have my daughter. And while I was off, the business got sold and there was no job to go back to. So I had a big gap then where I didn't do anything much to do with presenting or voiceover, and I worked at a local college. And then at the end of 2011, my husband was asked if he'd go work in the States for a couple of years. So we moved out to near Baltimore in Maryland, and he was going to work and the kids were going to school. And so I was at a bit of a loose end. Yeah. So I used that opportunity where I wasn't working, because I didn't have a work permit to start with, to train. And so I trained in voiceover while we lived in the States, got my work permit, set up my business over there, and then 2 years later came home with a whole new career that I never expected to have.
Wow. What a story. Holy. Okay. So what do you do to prepare for your work? I'm assuming you have some different voices and some different approaches, and how
yeah I mean, people will often ask me about, do I do different accents? And no, I don't really. Having said that, I have been asked to do an American accent by an American client, and I thought, why did you not just hire an American voiceover artist? But I think what they were going for was something in between British and American. But generally, I don't really do different accents, but I do sort of various shades of my own voice, if you like. So clients will give me some direction as to what their audience is, and maybe some adjectives to describe how they want the delivery to be. And so I will tailor the tone and the pace to match what they're looking for. And different genres of voiceover are approached in different ways. So, a commercial is very different to an e-learning narration, for example, and you would approach those in different ways. Yeah. And when I sort of first started out in voiceover, I did some training with a company called Edge Studio, who are based in New York, but they had a satellite studio in Washington, DC, which, I was in Baltimore, so that wasn't too far away. And there was a surprising amount to learn at the start, how to approach all these different sorts of copy, and of course, how to edit your audio, because 20 odd years ago, voiceover artists didn't work from home like they do now. They were going into studios, and there would be an audio engineer there who had spent years honing their craft. And so all the voiceover artists had to do was turn up, deliver their narration, and somebody else would deal with the whole editing of it. But not now. Now that we work from home studios, we're expected to be the audio engineers as well. So that was a steep learning curve to start with, because I had no experience of editing audio. And so that was something that I had to learn to be able to do for myself, because most clients want something that's ready just to drop into their project.
Wow. What a learning curve. What's your favorite type of project? Or maybe that's not fair to ask, but I'm curious, is there some that just you're like, oh yeah, I can't wait to do this one?
Yeah, I think my favorites are probably like the museum audio tours, because those are so interesting. And having a background in archaeology, that I'm attracted to that kind of thing anyway. So guided tours around museums or galleries, or guided walks around historic cities. Those are brilliant. I sit here in my little box thinking, oh, I'd love to go there. So those are probably my favorite. They don't come along too often. And documentaries as well, because again, really interesting, and you learn stuff while you're reading it. But yeah, don't get too many of them. It's more the corporate side of things, which I still enjoy. But when a museum audio tour comes my way, I'm like, oh yes, this is going to be good.
Right on. Commercials. Talk to me about commercials. I'm just curious. Have you ever had to do this Sunday, race day Sunday, this gonna buy stuff? Is that your?
Not too many. It's kind of fallen out of fashion, really. The hard sell. Okay. What everybody wants now is conversational. Girl next door. Don't sound like you're a voiceover artist. Nice. Which is surprisingly difficult to do, to sound conversational, because they still want it to be clear. They still want you to have good diction. They don't really want real conversation where you're running over your words and really fast. So that seems to be sort of the trend at the moment. I did a commercial a few years ago now, which is for a Bulgari perfume. And what they wanted was a British voiceover artist, but they wanted the name pronounced in an Italian accent. So I said I don't do accents, but I had to do that one word, Bulgari, in an Italian accent.
Very nice. Shameless plug for Bulgari. Oh, that is so cool. It sounds like a lot of fun, and you sound like a type of person that just enjoys what she does tremendously.
I do. Yeah, I do. And, sometimes the projects are a bit dry. Maybe it's a health and safety video or something.
Right.
I remember doing a particularly dull one about fire extinguishers. But it's an important video, and it's useful information that people need to know, and that's kind of what you have to keep in mind, that this could save somebody's life. This is important work I'm doing.
Oh, that's amazing. What is it? What else do you do just for Liz? Like, what's sort of what's something that maybe people don't know about you?
Oh my goodness, I do so many things. I'm involved in local theatre companies.
Oh,
In the winter months, I am the leader of the Barton-on-Humber Ghost Walk. I go running with my dog. I belong to a ladies' choir. I play the violin. And my most recent hobby, which I took up nearly a year ago now, is playing the baritone horn in a brass band. And I started that because my son plays the tuba, and he's left home now, and he's training to be a musician with the British Army.
Wow.
So he's a professional tuba player now.
Yeah.
And for years and years, we'd been taking him to and from band practice and lessons and so on. And I was really missing that connection with the band because we'd known them for so many years. I thought, well, I'm just going to have to learn a brass instrument myself then. So
no way.
So I'm currently a member of the training band, which before I joined it was known as the youth band. Because all the others are kids. So we're now the training band. But last night I had a training band rehearsal, and the main band were rehearsing after us. And because of holidays and so on, they're a bit shorter players at the moment. And I said, well, if you want a ropey baritone horn player, I can stay on. So I stayed and I joined the main band last night, and it was brilliant. I absolutely love it.
Oh, hilarious. What don't you do? Good grief. That's so cool. What advice do you have for? Well, actually, let me reframe this. So you're in North Lincolnshire.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I know nothing about this place, but I imagine it's got a park or someplace that you go running with your dogs.
Yes.
Dog one.
Dog singular. Yeah.
Dog singular. Yeah. Okay, so you're out there running with your dog. And, the endorphins are happening. It's a beautiful day. And you're sitting there thinking to yourself, I just wish the world knew this one thing. What is the one thing that you wish the world knew?
Oh, that's a good one, isn't it? Do you know, I think it is you make your own luck. I've never had a job yet that I've got through any kind of normal means where you write an application and you have an interview and you get offered a job. It's just never happened. I've just kind of said yes to things. And I think the more that you do that, the more stuff comes your way. Yeah. And, I never expected to have this career that I've got now. But when I was in the States, I saw things like, things kind of happened. So when I was newly arrived there, I went along to an expat's coffee morning where there were lots of ladies, many of whom had husbands that worked at the same place as my husband. Yeah. And one of them handed me a brochure for a local community college. And she said, I've done a number of courses here. Maybe there's something that will interest you. Because she knew that, I was at home, the kids were at school, my husband's at work, I need something to do. And I start flicking through this brochure, and I see they offer courses in acting, which was something that I loved doing, but had never had any training in. So I signed up to this college, and I went and did that. And I was in a play, and I joined the community chorus, and made some good friends and stuff. Yeah. And then I saw another course advertised that was called Acting for the Camera, and this was an evening class. And I went along to that, a local high school. Only 4 people showed up, and the tutor said, she says, I've got stuff prepared, but because there's only a few of you, tell me what you're interested in and I'll tailor the course to you. And I said to her, well, I've done a bit of voiceover in the past, but I've got no idea how to go about taking that any further. And she pointed me in the right direction, and she told me about some websites where you can have a profile, and clients will post jobs online and you can audition for them. And she put me in touch with a friend of hers who runs a recording studio, and he does a lot of e-learning, corporate videos, and sometimes needs British voices. And so he was my first client, and things just kind of snowballed and built from there. And looking back, there's all sorts of moments of serendipity where I just said yes to things. I mean, I said yes to going to live in the States in the first place. Yeah. I remember very clearly, I posted about this on LinkedIn actually the other day. I was chopping an onion in the kitchen, and my husband rang and he said, I've just been asked what we would think about going to live in the States for a couple of years. And I was just like, yes, yes, let's do it. The kids were of an age where we could take them out of school and they would, happily translate to the US system and then back to our system again. Oh. And, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now if we hadn't gone to America. And equally, my son, who I mentioned a bit ago, he wouldn't be doing what he's doing because in the US school, he had the opportunity to learn a brass instrument, which wasn't on offer in his primary school here. Oh. And so, it's all about taking chances. If an opportunity comes your way, just say yes.
Oh, I love that. Oh, that is so great. Thanks for that, Liz.
That was a bit long-winded, but we got to the point.
I love it. It's great. What's a guilty pleasure for Liz? Like, what do you do just for you? That's, maybe it's sitting down with a tub of Haagen-Dazs. I don't know.
Well, chocolate is good, isn't it? My husband is out tonight, and actually he doesn't like spicy food, and I love a curry. And I was going to get something out of the freezer, and I'd take something out to defrost it. I thought, no, do you know what? I'm going to order a takeaway curry because I'm here on my own and I can do what I like. So there you go. A curry, that's my guilty pleasure.
That's awesome. That's so great. Okay, so I'm going to go left here. Talk to me about archaeology and whether is it still a passion?
Yeah, I haven't really done anything with archaeology since I finished my PhD. Yeah. And, at the start of my studies, I thought that what I wanted to do was to become an academic and, spend my life researching and studying. And by the end of the 3 years of my PhD, I knew that I really didn't. And, I would look at what my supervisor was doing and just think, oh, I don't want your job. Because I don't know how it is in the States now, but certainly in UK universities, researchers are just constantly having to apply for funding and justify their existence. And, so he had a full teaching load and then applying for funding and doing his own research and supervising his PhD students. And he just seemed to have so many plates spinning. And I thought, no, that's not for me.
That's good that you saw that. Though,
yeah,
right? Like it's interesting. Are you I know you read for your work, but do you read for pleasure? Do you have books on your shelf that are like, oh, I love this book so much?
Yeah, do you know, I do. I don't get very much time to. Yeah. I've told somebody this before, and she thought it was hilarious. I read while I'm cleaning my teeth. That's my reading time. And I've perfected the art of keeping my mouth shut while I'm cleaning my teeth, so I can have my book in my hand.
Hilarious. Wow. Okay. What's your go-to reading?
I'm currently reading one of Bill Bryson's books. Who, if you don't know who Bill Bryson is, he's an American, but he's lived in the UK for most of his adult life, basically. And his writing is just hilarious, but so informative as well. And the book I'm reading at the moment, it's all about the house. Would you think, well, that's a dull topic, but it's really not. He makes it so interesting. So he lives in a pretty old house in the countryside, which was a rectory. And in the book, he takes you through basically every room in the house. And he talks about why we have that room and how it came about and about the things in that room. So the fireplaces, the windows, and just the history of all the sort of everyday objects. And it's so fascinating and entertaining at the same time.
Oh, wow. Do you have, and again, your time is uh, precious, so I don't know that you do this, but do you watch any television? Like, do you follow any shows?
I do. Do you know, I hardly watch anything anymore at the time that it's shown. I think, like a lot of people, I've moved to watching things on
Right.
demand, so through Netflix and so
Yeah.
on. So, yeah, my husband and I will sit down maybe about 9 o'clock in an evening and watch an episode of something. And we tend to sort of, binge watch things. So, like
Yeah.
several nights in a row. We've just finished watching the latest Bridgerton, which
Amazing.
which is a bit of fluff, really, but
Yeah.
you kind of
Oh,
get dragged into it.
we're totally into the British baking show. The greatest
Oh yeah,
British baker, is that what it is? Like, I
the
think we
the, the
start.
Bake Off.
Yeah, what I can't recall what it like the greatest British. I don't know, Bake Off. Yeah, maybe, but I think it's like Noah Fielding is one of the
Yes,
hosts,
yeah,
and
the
I
Bake
love
Off.
him.
Yeah,
Very cool. Okay, nice. Um, oh boy. Um, so curry, hey?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
What is?
do you know, I do a lot of networking for my business, and I attend online networks and in-person networks. But my favourite one is called Wired Curry, and about once a month, a group of people who are in the digital and creative industries get together and have a curry, and it's it's completely informal.
Yeah.
The chat is rarely about anything to do with work. It's all sorts of things. We're
Yeah.
just kind of getting to know each other and hanging out. Um, but it's the one time in a month where I get to eat a curry because my husband will not entertain the idea of it.
And I'm assuming there's non-bread involved.
This, always
Always.
naan
Yeah.
bread. Yeah,
Always. Yeah.
always.
All the non. All the non all the time. That's yeah. Okay, cool. Um oh, there's these people out in the world, Liz. And I'd like to call them rebels in waiting because
Mm,
they're maybe they're about to take the leap. Maybe they're they've got a new adventure. Maybe they're going to go to America. I know that you've given us some advice already, like just say yes and do it. But I wonder if there's anything else that you might be able to offer, from your perspective, from what you've seen, to help these people, these rebels in
mm,
waiting, get to where they're going
yeah.
faster, easier.
Yeah. Well, I think networking is a great thing to do as a small business owner. And as I say, I belong to a number of different networks, but they can be really supportive communities if you find the right one.
Yeah.
And as a small business owner, it can be a pretty lonely place to be. And I think if you can find your network that will support you in what you're doing, help you promote what you're doing, help give you advice and guidance when you hit those difficult times, as we all do. And a lot of small business owners have been through this, the same kind of things that you're going through. And it's great to find those people that you can share things with. And not just people, we like to network with people who might be able to give us work at the end of the day. But it's also important, I think, to build a network in your own industry as well. So I have some great voiceover artists that I know, and we often pass work to each other. But there's always somebody at the end of the phone line or at the end of a text if you've got a problem with how do I find a pronunciation for this particular word, or my client's looking for somebody with a such and such an accent. Does anybody know anybody? Or they want somebody who's a certain ethnicity. Does anybody know anybody? Or oh, this client has not paid me again. Anyone got any advice as to what I do about chasing up this payment?
Yeah.
And I think you need to find those people that you trust, and that you can share those difficulties with, and get help and advice from them.
Yeah.
So even if you're sort of very new into your industry, reach out to someone else who's doing something similar to you and just say, hey, I've just started doing this. What advice can you give me? Because most people are generous with their time.
Yeah.
Certainly in my experience and in my industry, I get lots of new voiceover artists reaching out to me saying, can I just have 10 minutes of your time? Just tell me, how did you get started? Who should I be contacting? What do I need to do? And I'm always happy to give them some time.
I love that. Where can people find you, Liz? Where can people, see what you're up to, connect with you, hire you?
Yep. So my website is pretty easy to remember. It's lizdrury.com. And I also hang out on LinkedIn. That's kind of my preferred platform, social media platform. So Liz Drury, Voiceover. If you look for me on there, then it's a fairly unusual name. You should be able to find me on there.
Yeah. Well, I'll put all the links in the show notes and all that stuff.
Fantastic.
Too. Oh, Liz, this has been so great. I thank you so much for being so generous with your time and sharing your stories. I could listen to you forever. Clearly, you're in the right job.
Thank you very much. It's been great. I've loved talking to you.
Hey, it's me again. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you're an artist, entrepreneur, or business owner who believes your brand could be more than it is, head over to brandjitsu.com and join the list to get your copy of my book, Brand Jitsu, Move Your Brand from Meh to Memorable. I've been your host, Michael Dargy, and this has been the Rebel Podcast. It's a podcast for creative rebels and entrepreneurs all over the world. And hey, if you're a rebel or you know a rebel, why don't you head on over to therebelrebelpodcast.com and fill out our guest request form. Share or subscribe wherever you get your favorite podcasts. And thanks so much for listening. Until next time.